Well, hey guys and gals, I'm Andy Asher. I'm editor over here at Bloomer Boomer. Now, September has been an awesome month here at Bloomer Boomer as we kicked off the first full season of new shows with an amazing group of live hosts who share breakthrough discoveries and ideas for all of us who are over 55. Now, all the shows are live, by the way, and they are open for your questions. You can even, binge watch your favorite show at bloomerboomer.com. Now, today we have as our featured author, and this season of shows is Finding Peace During the Pandemic and Beyond. And today's episode is Forgiveness. Why is it so difficult? And his name is Dr. Gregory Hammer, who has developed a plan and a system that goes by the acronym of GAIN, G-A-I-N. Without pain, gain without pain. That's been described as a toolbox to conquer your walls of internal and external struggle. Now, his book is geared for any age, but as a baby boomer, Dr. Hammer understands what it makes us unique. And he is also a pediatric physician and a Stanford professor. In a moment, we're going to talk with Dr. Gregory Hammer about his book, Gain Without Pain. If you want to be part of this amazing journey with Bloomer Boomer, with the community here, register on the website for the newsletter and then qualify for member benefits, of course. We do live stream everything on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and here at Bloomer Boomer. And in the meantime, we'll hear from Dr. Gregory Hammer and Gain Without Pain in a moment. But first, remember to join Bloomer Boomer and join our community. Well, Greg, it is so good to have you here. It's great to see you, and I'm glad you're doing well.
Great to be with you again, Andy. And yes, I know that we in the area are all relieved with the improvement in the air quality. We can finally go outside and go for walks and bike rides and hikes. I'll tell you, speaking of gain without pain, the thing about pain is when it stops, it feels so good.
That's a good point. Yeah,
we still have the pandemic to contend with, but at least the air quality for now is much better, and that's a big relief.
Yeah, we learn to appreciate what we have a little bit more. So today in the series, Finding Peace During the Pandemic and Beyond, is about forgiveness. Why is it so difficult? It is so true, though. Maybe if there is time later, I'll tell you a story about forgiveness, but I've found it's a good feeling, actually to forgive. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I think relationships are so vital to our happiness. It's been shown that close relationships, improve our health, our cardiovascular health, our immune health, our blood sugar regulation. Good relationships and good marriages decrease our blood pressure, and they lead to happier and longer lives. And so what are the keys to having a good relationship or good relationships in general? And certainly one of the foundations of having a meaningful, happy, healthy relationship is forgiveness and compassion. I think we can all appreciate that conflicts will always come up in relationships, and unless we are compassionate with each other and unless we forgive each other, and that includes actually ourselves, then we will not have strong, healthy relationships, and we will not reap the benefits of those.
Yes, and it's too bad that we find forgiveness, such a hard thing to do. It seems really unfortunate. Why do we have so much difficulty with that?
That's a great question, Andy. I think it's really a combination of self-protection. We feel vulnerable in relationships, in intimate relationships, and relationships with good friends. Some of us may have a fear of abandonment. And these sort of ego protective mechanisms, I think, probably arise based on our early childhood experiences. For example, I think many of us in our generation had fathers that perhaps were working very hard, and in my case, gone much of the time, and mothers may or may not have been at home, but the need to please our parents and the associated fear of being neglected or abandoned by our parents, I think in some cases leads to a longer lived situation whereby we're very self-protective. That's just one, explanation, but I think for whatever the case in our individual situations, we all get hurt. We all want to protect ourselves. And when we feel that we've been abused or boundaries have been trespassed, we've been mistreated, it evokes, I think, anger and anxiety and a number of emotions in all of us. And we've talked about our negativity bias. So we tend to reflect on our relationships as well as many of our other experiences with a certain degree of negativity and skepticism. And so I think we have a lot of personality traits, Andy, that lead to this issue with so much difficulty being compassionate and forgiving of others.
Yeah, I told you I had an experience this past week with that, and I experienced forgiveness, and it had to do with the fact that I was having a disagreement with my daughter in terms of grandparenting, and she was mad at me, and I was annoyed with her, and we were texting back and forth. I showed it to my partner, to, Mimi, and she looked at it and she said, she's right. I just left it at that, and I said, I'm sorry, and I'll tell you what, it makes you feel kind of good. It does.
Absolutely. I think that, forgiving others and forgiving ourselves is a little dopamine hit. And I think that forgiveness really and compassion go along with the gain elements, that is gratitude, acceptance, intention, and non-judgment. And we can, for example, when we have a conflict in a relationship, which is inevitable, and I think the veracity and health of our relationships does not mean the absence of conflict, but rather it's how we deal with the conflict. So we can go back to the gain principles when we have a disagreement or a painful interaction in a close relationship. And first of all, breathe, get back in touch with our breath, pause before being too reactive. Remember how lucky we are to have this relationship to begin with, and be grateful for the wonderful things and the fruits of this relationship. And then secondly, be accepting of conflict. Remember that conflict is going to creep into every relationship. It's impossible to avoid conflict. It's a matter, again, of how we deal with it. And so be accepting that conflict will arise, that people have their own different perspectives and will have disagreements. And then use our intention, our purposefulness, to focus on being compassionate and forgiving. And one way to do that is to pretend, for example, if we're being very self-blaming, how can we have forgiveness and compassion toward ourselves? Pretend that we're talking to a good friend, and our missteps as we perceive them were in fact those of a good friend. And would we be critical and judgmental and lacking compassion with that individual? No. So this is an exercise in self-compassion, but we can do exercises in compassion for others. And there are compassion training courses, as a matter of fact. Fred Luskin, who's a dear friend of mine, has written several books on forgiveness. Forgive for Love is one, and Forgive for Good is another. And they really highlight that we all have the capacity for forgiveness and compassion, but we have to be intentional or purposeful about bringing these qualities out. Yeah. And then finally, I would say, Andy, that the end in gain being non-judgment. If we remind ourselves, we don't have to describe every interaction or the quality of a relationship as good or bad. We can simply reflect upon it as being exactly as it is, and not judging it, and therefore not judging ourselves. So I think the GAIN principles are key in terms of developing and expressing forgiveness and compassion, which are so important.
Yeah. Yeah, just to go on a little bit with that story of mine now, one thing I also learned in this episode and a couple of others connect concerning family is, you know what? It's a lot more enjoyable to love somebody than to feel bittered or not forgiving them or unforgiving. It's just a better feeling. And hey, life's too short to be feeling bad, so you might as well do what feels good.
Absolutely.
Pretty simple.
Yeah,
Overly
I think
simple.
that, it's normal when you have a conflict to have, or a loss, let's say you lose a loved one, you're going to have grief. And your grief may lead to sadness, denial. We have conflicts that result in regret, anxiety, anger. So it's not a matter of suppressing these responses. I think that we should be open, and this is the A in GAIN being acceptance. We should be open and accepting of our own initial responses and sit with those. Don't resist them, because that will increase the degree to which they cause suffering. So open our hearts to these initial responses and let them sit. And then I think we can come around to a broader perspective and bring in the GAIN elements and be forgiving and compassionate. And as you said, those will make us feel good. Those will bring us a little dopamine hit. And we should turn ourselves in the direction of that which resonates in this manner.
Yeah, I'm definitely into the dopamine hits. That feels a lot better. Now, you posed the question in your book: Is it necessary? Is it necessary to forgive? Now, I guess I know the answer to that, but I'll let you tell me.
Well, I think the alternative to forgiving when the inevitable conflict arises in relationship is harboring resentment, and this leads to anxiety, and then we judge ourselves for being resentful, and we experience shame and regret if we have a breakup of a relationship because of our own poorly developed sense of forgiveness and compassion. That's something we may very well regret. I think we've all had breakups that we feel that in retrospect we could have avoided, and therefore we feel shame and regret, and we dwell on these past experiences with our negativity bias, and that prevents us from being present and causes suffering. So yes, I think it's absolutely essential to develop these qualities of forgiveness and compassion that we all embody. It's a matter of unveiling those emotional knee-jerk reactions that are inherent in all of us, and revealing our true nature of compassion, forgiveness, and happiness.
And like so much in life, it takes practice to get better at it. Is there something we can practice to get better at forgiveness?
Well, I think that we can, do our GAIN meditation, as I said, and sort of, when we consider that for which we're grateful and that which we must accept, etc., sort of contemplate as we're getting in touch with our breath and slowing our breathing rate and our heart rate down, get in touch with the essence of what it is that is at the heart of this conflict with another person. And then just sort of breathe in, as I said, the gratitude that we feel for what we've had with this individual. If it's somebody important to us, certainly we've had wonderful experiences with that person that for which we can be grateful. And then, apply acceptance and just open our hearts, sit with these feelings of anxiety, sadness, whatever the manifestations are, and allow those to come closer and closer until we can really merge with those and sit with them. And we probably will realize there's really nothing there other than unnecessary emotional knee-jerk responses. And then, direct our intention at forgiveness and compassion. As I said, it's within all of us, as Dr. Luskin would have us be reminded. So, then go to non-judgment of the other person and ourselves for responding the way we do. And I think that forgiveness and compassion will result from this manner of using the gain principles to contemplate the conflict we have in our relationships.
Yeah. I know you're going to talk about episode 4 and what that's all about, but can you take just a few questions, frequently asked questions, in our FAQ section, just in here in about 10 seconds?
Absolutely, I would love to.
Okay. We're back. Now this is from Stephanie Gregg, and she says she's 67 and she wonders how to overcome, I guess it's a stalemate. She says that she has a friend and neither of them want to give up, forgive. They don't, neither one wants to forgive the other person. She didn't say what they were fighting about, but there has to be some, I don't know, give and take or something like that.
Yes. Well, first of all, we can't control how other people feel and how they respond. So I would just focus our energy on ourselves and, again, go to a place of presence, of being calm and contemplate what's at the essence of this conflict and inability to feel compassion and forgiveness for this friend. And I would just sort of do a little gain meditation, get into the breathing and slow things down, and then contemplate what we've had with this individual. And we should be grateful for the good things that we've had and sort of go through the gain elements, as I've said, because this is something that will lead to regret and shame going forward. I think that for Stephanie's relationship, the reason it's causing her pain is because it's an important relationship. If it weren't important, it would be easy to let it go. And so it deserves the attention and the patience that would pre-exist and lead to compassion and forgiveness. So I think we can only be responsible for our own feelings. And, I would just focus on what is the essence of this conflict and, again, apply the gain principles. There are also, courses for compassion and forgiveness training that are available online. And as I said, Dr. Luskin and others have written books on this. So that might be a resource for Stephanie. But go to your heart, Stephanie, and sink into it and really contemplate and sit with the essence of this conflict. And I think you may discover that there's really nothing there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna plug your book in a big way because I'm thinking, what someone can do when they find themselves in one of these situations and they don't know how to get out of it. You could literally go into the book, go through the different steps that it breaks out, and then put it into like almost on a mathematical equation if you want to look at it that way. But if you take certain steps, maybe you can work your way through the difficulty. It sounds odd in such an emotional type issue, but we can break it down in ways, in little segments that maybe if we follow that, we can overcome it.
Yes. And I think it's important at the same time to realize the essential nature of our close relationships. Again, it's our contact with those that we care for, those that we love, that really provides a base of healthfulness, of longevity, of happiness. Again, cardiovascular health, immune health, gut health, increases the length of our telomeres that protect our chromosomes and keep us youthful. So let's appreciate the quality and the importance of having close relationships with others. This is just absolutely essential to our health and well-being. And I think that may also put these conflicts into perspective.
That's a really good point. I mean, in the beginning, you have to take the assumption that people want to maintain these relationships, and that's really important. We have time for just a couple more. Greg, Bill says he just turned 70, and his old business partner is not forgiving him for selling off his share of the business. It sounds like a tough one, and I suppose all of these type of situations can be put in kind of the same box, but we wouldn't want to generalize about everything. But in many cases, they seem to fall into similar issues. But anyway, you're the expert, not me.
Well, I would just say to Bill, what we discussed with Stephanie, and that is that, we can only be responsible for ourselves, for our own emotions and our own reactivity. And so for Bill, I think, just go to your heart, sink into your heart, and recognize the importance of this relationship, and just, let go of any conflict that you have with it. You can't control how your friend is going to respond. But I think over time, if you meet his hostility or lack of forgiveness with an open heart and with acceptance, he will come around, he or she will come around. And so all we can do is be present ourselves and sort of radiate this openness with our friend. And I think that usually other people will come around as long as we're kind and compassionate with them. Not always, but again, that goes to acceptance. The world does not conform to our wants and needs in every case. So we have to accept the things that we cannot change. And if Bill's compassion for his friend doesn't eventually lead to his friend coming around, then that's just something that Bill has to accept, unfortunately.
Yeah. We sort of talked about this one a little bit, but it came up here. Mary is asking what to do if neither person is willing to forgive, then what? And, kind of answered it, I know, but...
I think that was sort of Stephanie's issue, is that she and this friend are sort of locked in this, apparent irreconcilable conflict. And again, we can only do what we can do for ourselves. But I do believe that reflecting compassion and forgiveness with our friends, our colleagues, our loved ones, eventually it has a positive effect, has a positive vibration. And doing that, I think, being present with others helps them become present. Being compassionate and kind with others helps them be compassionate as well. And so this is just the foundation of having a good relationship, but we can't always control, or we can never really control what the other person is feeling or how they're behaving. So I would just say, again, let's focus on our own hearts and be open-hearted and forgiving and compassionate ourselves. And usually the other person will come around, but not always.
Yeah, I was going to say the other person can learn from you, as an example. Well, anyway,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get right back, Greg, and talk a little bit about next week and any final words. Okay?
Yes. Thank you, Andy.
Okay, Greg, we're back, and if I have my schedule right, I think we're going to be talking about gratitude, an essential ingredient for happiness. That sounds like a good one. Is that about right?
Yes, I think we'll dive into the G in GAIN, which is gratitude. And yes, as you stated, gratitude is absolutely essential to happiness. We can have a variety of physical disabilities and be happy. We can be poor and be happy, but we cannot be ungrateful and happy. So we'll talk more about that.
Fantastic. And where can folks learn more about your book, Gain Without Pain, the Happiness Handbook?
Well, they can go to my website, which is greghammermd.com, all lowercase, greghammermd.com. And there's links to lots of media, I think, including some of our conversations, and also a link to where they can find the book on Amazon. And I'm looking forward to getting a pocketbook version of Gain Without Pain out hopefully in the next couple of months. So I appreciate people having a look and checking it out.
That's a great idea. That's a really good idea. Hey, Greg, thanks for taking some time again. Always enjoyable, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much, Andy. I look forward to it.
Absolutely. And thank you for watching. Greg will be back here the same day at the same time. Dr. Greg Hammer, author of Gain Without Pain. You can find out more on Facebook, YouTube, and bloomerboomer.com. And if you like this, please like Facebook and like us on Facebook. In the meantime, get to know Bloomer Boomer and our web platform to springboard you to a meaningful life after 55. We'll see you next time.